up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice & Dragons, we are going to be reviewing Robotech Brace for Impact, designed by Nick Ferris, published by Escape Velocity Games and Japanime Games. And this is a...
review copy.
Yes. So, just a disclaimer, this is a review copy, but once again, all of our opinions are our own. That's a little difficult to say.
Yeah, and normally Jason says, thank you to Japanime Games for this review copy, and I say our opinions are our own, so we got all messed up there.
Hey, well, we got to do some things different from time to time. We change up our thumbnails, so why not change the intro? Now, Julie's going to take it away and tell you more about the game itself.
So this is a competitive game that also has a cooperative setting.
Yes, the cooperative setting is only at 2 players, however.
It is intended for 2 to 15 players. Plays in 10 minutes in the non-cooperative mode, so in the competitive mode, and is intended for ages 10 and above.
Yes, this is a real-time game. So I want to stress that if you do not like real-time games, well, listen to our review to see if this is something that you would like to pick up. You are going to have a time limit, as Julie mentioned, for 10 minutes. There will also be timed events with the Zentraedi player, as well as with regards to some damage you will be taking. Now, what are you doing in the game? Well, if you are the Robotech Defense Force, you are going to be defending the SCF-1 by repairing your ship and attacking enemy ships that are currently, well, giving you a really hard time. If you are the Zentraedi player, what you will be doing is deploying ships to different locations on the board. You will also be choosing to attack the players or using the Zentraedi event deck in order to do some really nasty things to them. Now, there are some additional components that you can add to the game once you've had more experience. The Zentraedi commanders and the tactics cards, those all affect how the Zentraedi player will interact with the game. Now, that is something that we did not get a chance to play. And I think one thing that we want to mention before, if you had any questions, I think we both agree this definitely has a little bit of a party game type feel to it. This is a great filler game, but we're not going to talk more about that now. We're going to save that for the review, but I don't know if you agree with me. I thought it was a little important to include it in the intro.
Well, you did, so now it's there.
All right. So what time is it, Julie?
Time to grab our drinks.
Grab our best friend.
Gotta take it to the table one more time.
One more time. Let's try out this cooperative mode. Now we're going to take a quick look at the components for Robotech Brace for Impact. Now here we've got the rulebook for the game. Nice explanations how to set up the game. Also the first page, we've got some cool Robotech art and just a list of the components. You have the setup chart just based on the different player counts that you have in the game. This now gives you a nice gameplay overview. And towards the back, you're going to have the instructions for different player counts and explains how to win the game. Now, the way you're going to win is depending on the different timers. For the Robotech Defense Force, you must have the battle timer, which is the red timer here, go through 2 rotations in order to win. Now, for the Zentraedi player, you need to have this damage to the reflex furnace go through 1 rotation without any repairs being done. Now, this is a 1-minute timer. This is a 5-minute timer. And then we've got the Zentraedi event timer, which is 30 seconds that controls the event deck. Now we've got the spinner right here, which you're going to be using to determine different attacks. Use the pluses for the players. The Zentraedi player will be using these tiles, which have different values, and they are set up all across, fitting into these different slots on the board. So as you can see, we've got 1 for each slot. These tiles here represent the 4 different assets that you're trying to defend. You got your life support, the armor, the reflex furnace, and the hull. Now, armor will block and protect these assets. Now, all the tokens are double-sided, so as you can see, flip them over, and you will get the damaged version of it. And then you'll have to repair it in order to flip it back over. Now, we have 2 stacks of cards for the RDF actions. Now, the reason why I've got them divided into 2 stacks, you'll notice that there's 5+ down here. All these cards are removed from the game unless you've got 5 or more players. Now, we'll take a look at the anatomy of the card. So what you're going to have to do during the game is read out the full top of the card. So If you're trying to repair life support, read all that out. If you're trying to attack, then another player must play the corresponding command. So for example, this is a wild. If you read out for life support, they'd have to send the repair teams in. If you read out for the attack, they'd have to play this card, lock on, and attack those targets. So that's how the RDF action deck works. Now for the Zentraedi player, what they're going to be doing is going through the event cards. You're going to have the event deck placed face up, and quite literally you're going to be waiting and you will decide whether to trigger the event or take your chances with an attack. Now you also have these different ship cards which are listed as 6+, maybe a fake out, 3 to 5. They also have an effect if they're scouted by the RDF player. You can see what some of those ships are. You might have the pods, a cruiser. There are even some of the larger named villains like Miria, who becomes an ally later on. You may have just a scout that's actually listed as 6+. You can run into Chiron, and even there's a Zentraedi flagship in here, which I'm trying to find, which is very difficult to deal with. Now we've got two components that Julie and I have not tried out yet, the enemy commanders and enemy tactics. Now the commanders give you a special ability, but they do have a negative effect on your hand. So you may trigger those if you choose to add these optional elements to the game. You also have the enemy tactic cards, which you can use as well. And we didn't get to the point where we were able to try these out. So there you have it. These are all the components for Robotech Brace for Impact. Now keep it right here as I'm going to teach you how to set up the game and then how to play. So how do you set up Robotech Brace for Impact? Well, first thing you got to do is place these tiles on the board. Now what I like to do is follow the manual here, as this is the example setup that they give you. So I'm just figuring that there's specific reasons why certain tiles are in certain locations. I have this one off to the side here because it's the one that's going to go there. So we need to start with play at the 1 player spot. Now, it doesn't really matter where you put it inside the region, but we will place it right there. I'm just making sure that everything's staying on camera. I might have to adjust a few things. So this is where the reflex furnace goes. And I'll actually take the rule book and move it in just a second, but I wanted to have it on camera so that everyone could see a nice example as to how this gets set up. So it looks like we've got just enough room. So far, the life support is actually in the wrong spot. Oh, we got life support, armor. I put the reflex furnace in the wrong spot. This needs to go for the 4. We need a hull in this location. 2+ is reflex furnace and armor. So still looking pretty good. If something gets cut off, I apologize. I'm trying to give you the best view possible. It does look like a little bit of the reflex furnace is getting cut off on the camera. So we then need to place the hull. So 3+. Now we'll move this. Yes. Life support there. And the hull goes here. Now, what you're then also going to need to do is set up your tiles. And don't worry, the rulebook's going to come back because there's another thing that we're going to need to do. Now, you're always using every single tile in the game. That's never in question. All of them are necessary for play. Crap because of this, but it doesn't matter. We've got the life support. And lastly, we have the 7 hull tiles. 3, 4, 5, 6. And just place that in there. So that's 7. So we've got all of the setup for the SDF1. Now we will be starting the damage of tiles based on the difficulty level. So we're going to go with a veteran setup for 2 to 4 players. Just to give you a good example, so we flip 1 armor. Reflex furnace is damaged by 1. Life support is damaged by 1. And the hull is damaged by 2. So this will be the starting setup for the players on veteran difficulty. Now we do need to make sure that the timers are easily accessible. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to place them between, the reflex furnace will only come into play if it gets activated. So we're going to place those within easy reach. We want to have the one for the Zentraedi player the closest. So the way things are going to work with the Zentraedi player, they shuffle up the event card deck. I do have some of these things upside down from the last time that we played. And one thing to note, if you are playing a 2-player setup, the event card deck and the Zentraedi deck will not be included. For the 2-player setup, it is a cooperative game, and you're trying to defeat the entire ship deck. So it plays a little differently than a regular game. So what you're going to want to do as a Zentraedi player is shuffle this up, and then you're going to need to play your cards. Now you draw the top 2 cards. If, for example, though, within the top cards you get any 6+ cards, they're then placed at the bottom of the deck. Now, when you place a ship over something, you are actually going to be able to trigger the ship's ability when a Zentraedi attack happens. So you might want to leave life support and armor -1, because those are good things. Hull -2 is not that great right off the bat, and maybe we don't care that much about the reflex furnace. So we've now placed our ships. You then draw 5 cards, and these make up the Zentraedi player's hand. Now these are going to be off camera. Getting a little bit of glare on that, but it's not too bad. So for the event cards, actually, you always have one listed as face up, and this will be the card that you can trigger or do something else like triggering a Zentraedi attack when the timer goes down. So as this is a 2 to 4 player setup, you're going to take these 5-player cards, they're returned to the game box. We then take the RDF action deck, shuffle them up, and we're going to create 4 stacks. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I believe some of them are off camera, it's not that big a deal. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you get the idea as to what I'm doing. I'll continue sorting the deck off camera. I just don't like the glare that we're getting right now. So I'm going to now teach you how to play the game. Keep it right here. I'll be back faster than a space fold. So how do you play Robotech Brace for Impact? Well, this is a real-time game. I will not be playing this game in real time. Just to let you know, it's really impossible to show it to you and clearly explain the rules with everything going on. The game is designed to be frantic. It's really almost a party-style Robotech game, as the game will play in 10 minutes. So when you're ready to start, you will flip over the battle timer and the Zentraedi timer at the same time. Now, before the start of the game, each player will draw 2 cards from their deck, and during their turn, they will try to execute the top actions on their cards by reading out in full these commands, and another player will have to check and see if they're then able to complete it. So I'm setting up these decks off camera so that I can see them if one of the cards is peeking on. Apologies, I do believe everything is off camera right now, but you'll get a chance to see what we've got going on. See the Zentraedi timer, it just flows really quickly. That's why I can't show you in real time what's going on. So there you have it, we've drawn all the cards. And now we need to try to take specific actions. At this point, the Macross is damaged, so we're gonna want to try to get some repairs going. So at this point, a player can say there are no remaining armor plates covering us, and then another player needs to play the proper command. There's 2 options. It could be dispatch armor repair teams to Macross City, or it could be the one that is wild, send the repair teams in. You want to try to keep these wilds as long as possible. So in this case, hopefully this player is the one that plays first. This is real time, so the first player to try to execute something is the one that succeeds. We then repair the armor by 1. Now, those 2 cards have been played, meaning, and this, for example, would be player 1 and player 2. They no longer have 2 cards. And you can't draw any cards unless you do a few different things. So we'll take an example of another action. We can take an attack action. So player 4 has the card Armored Batchroids in position to counterattack. We have player 3's card Lock On and attack those targets. So when you make an attack, you will spin you will add what the result is, and that we were using armor destroyed, so the result is 2. So we have a total of 4. Now we just have to guess, as we've not scouted one of these locations yet. You reveal the card, and hopefully you get enough damage. As this was power armor of 5, we do not destroy it. Now if we picked the fighter, for example, we would have destroyed it. Let's, just for the sake of gameplay, imagine we picked the fighter. It is now destroyed, and it would go into a discard pile. As we're getting some glare from my lighting, I'm just going to toss it off camera. It's not going to come back. Now the Zentraedi player cannot replace that ship. Well, not yet. Anyway, they have to require the event deck to let them do it. Now, it's been more than 30 seconds. We've been explaining the game. So the Zentraedi player now has a choice. They may execute the event, direct hit to the inner hull, reduce hull by 2. As this is a direct hit, they don't have to wait for the armor to be depleted, because normally when you do damage, so to say a Zentraedi attack, which is their other options, either execute the event or do a Zentraedi attack. Let's spin the wheel here and see what happens if we didn't attack. Well, we have the choice of Reflex Furnace -1 or Armor -2. Now, anytime we try to attack the Reflex Furnace, Life Support, or the hull, it comes from the armor first. This would be a great spin if the Reflex Furnace, if the armor was down to hit the Reflex Furnace directly. So in this case, we'd want to hit the armor by 2. But we've got a great card. It's much better for us, especially since the hull's already damaged, to do the direct hit and damage the hull by 2. Now, if the hull is ever completely destroyed, players will lose the game. If life support is completely destroyed, players will lose the game. The only thing that goes on a timer is the Reflex Furnace, which players will then have 1 minute to at least repair it. So we're in a situation now where the players each only have 1 card, so there's really not too much that they can do. Well, looking around, there's really only one last play, which would be player 4 saying Max Sterling is prepared to peel off an attack, and then trying to do the attack. Well, remember, this is a real-time game, so you're not going to have this much communication to decide. One person will have to decide to play, or potentially do what needs to be done in order for them to draw cards. Now, after the Zentraedi players played their event, it gets discarded. They flip over the top card from the deck. Now, I'm going to actually look for a specific card because, I want to show you how enemy ships will come back into play. So we'll go over this. We'll say this was what was played. So Max Sterling, we got the orders to be able to use him. So Max Sterling has +2. We do the spin. Luckily, we get +4. So we can reveal the card. So in this case, for a total of 7, the ship would be destroyed. Now, we're in a tight spot. As we've been explaining the game, the Zentraedi player would have had time to execute this event, and that's how they're going to play cards. So multiple contacts are moving into weapons range. So you look at your cards because these are the damage that you can do with all of them. So you've got some really nasty cards. So we really want to get these into play. And it says 3 enemies, meaning we can put 3 enemies into play. So right now, 3 damage to the hull is a little bit better than 1 life support. We can hit the hull and the Reflex Furnace with a pod. So we'll place that one over there. And we've got 1 more that we can play. And 2 hull, 1 I like that one better there. We then, of course, always draw cards. So that's what we're going to be doing now. I'm going to take a peek at this. This is the 6 strength card. Just to teach you the game, I'm going to put the flagship at the top here, actually. So that's perfect. So we've got our set of 5 cards. We're down to 2 cards on our players. Now they have a choice. They can either try to scan, which would let them draw cards. And when you draw cards, it's always up to the life support. That's what I did at the start of the game. Or they call out all hands, brace for impact, which would let the Zentraedi player get a chance to make an attack. Now, that's really the only thing you can do in this situation. Each player will then draw 2 cards. So I'll just show you what we're drawing. 2 and 2. So we've got some of the bigger cards, which is good. Unfortunately, we didn't get one of the actions I wanted to show you set up properly. So we got the scout cards, but not the command. I'm going to just swap cards. Now, you can't do this in the game. just swap the cards between players so that we can actually teach you the scout command. So players want to get stuff going. We also want to be able to draw more cards. Well, take a look. If anyone has something to repair the life support, we do, but then we can also scout with this, so that's a little tricky. Taking a look at player 4. So we can definitely repair the life support, but we lose our ability to scout. But you're never going to know what's going to happen, as players are going to be calling stuff out randomly. So in any case, we need to scout. We need more cards at this point. So scouts need to move to identify incoming threat. You play move scouts to investigate. What you can then do is you scout the ships that are available. If you have the all draw symbol, for example, right here, now all players will once again be able to draw up to the life support value. So that means 2 more cards for every player. And that really is key. Drawing cards, getting cards back into your hand is how you're going to be successful. So I'd have to say, if you want to shoot stuff down, try to avoid shooting stuff down that is an all draw, because that's just going to potentially slow you down. Now, for example, you scout something that has a repair function on it. Well, guess what? You get to repair something, and you notice it's got the wild symbol, so it can be anything. In this case, by scouting repair, it would be life support. And while this is going on, players are going to be continuing. The timer is going to be coming on. The Zentraedi player is going to be going through their events. They will always be revealing the event like as so that they can see. And if they do not like the event, for example, incoming fires or reflex furnace, you probably don't want to do that in a situation like this. As there's armor, you just take the Zentraedi attack, see what you get. If your fighter's in play, that's 3 damage to the hull, the armor's full, you'll totally take out the armor. So keep that in mind. You've got the opportunity to scout or call all hands brace for impact to draw cards, which will let the Zentraedi player take an attack. Now, what will happen if you have these big guys out there, like the Zentraedi flagship with a value of 14? If we take a look at the cards, the strongest attack you have is 5 plus 4 is 9, so you cannot defeat it. Well, the other command that you can call is called All Hands Concentrate Fire. You discard cards face up until you get the value needed to destroy your ship. So we were at 9. Now we're at 13. Thought we had a 1 somewhere. You really want to try to get things exact, because once you get the value, yay, the ship is destroyed. These cards are then removed from the game. Now, play is going to continue until this battle timer has been flipped twice. So the first time is to charge the reflex cannon. The last time is to fire. So the one thing I just haven't explained is how the reflex furnace works. Let's say, for example, it gets damaged. It's at 0. The timer is now ticking. Someone needs to repair the reflex furnace. So at this point, the reflex furnace is about to go critical. The card is played, provided that someone has the proper repair card for the furnace or send the repair teams in. It is then repaired. Now what will happen is this timer here does not get flipped. It continues on, meaning if the Zentraedi player damages it again, well, guess what? The players have more time to fix it, because if this whole timer runs out, which it has to, that's the only time it'll start again for that 1-minute countdown for the explosion. So in this scenario, we'd let it run out, and then you'd flip it again, giving the players up to another minute, so you could maybe even have almost 2 minutes to repair the reflex furnace, depending on the cards in your hand. And there you have it. That's how you play Robotech Brace for Impact at a 4-player count, 3 or 4 players. With a 2-player count, just to explain it to you quickly, what's going to happen is you remove the Zentraedi deck, and every time that you call all hands brace for impact, the players decide how many ships they feel like deploying until this deck is depleted. And then if they happen to survive, well, the players will have won the game. So it's still a real-time game, but it's played at a much less intense pace, because the only real-time element that you have is the reflex furnace timer. So there you have it. That's our explanation for Robotech Brace for Impact, how to play it cooperatively, which we just did quickly, how to play it competitively, which is definitely the way it was designed to be played. So Julia and I will now be coming back at you with our review of the game. So Robotech Brace for Impact, what did you think of the game?
Well, this is definitely I think, party game, as we said in the intro. We've been waiting to have an opportunity in these pandemic times to be able to play it more than just the two of us, to really give it an opportunity to see what it's really about.
And I want to stress something. There is no way we could have reviewed this game playing 2 players, because the 2-player version, it's nice to have. We'll talk more about it shortly, but it's definitely not the way the game was designed at all. But they did do a good job of implementing a mechanic to make sure you can pretty much always get it to the table.
So that being said, we did get to play it 4 players, and the first time was a mess, I guess I would say. It takes a little bit of time to get the idea of how this works, I believe, anyways. And once you got it figured out, it's really easy. It just takes at least a playthrough to understand what you're doing.
Yeah, you've got to fumble through it. It definitely, you mentioned that it was a party game. I'm just going to backtrack that a little bit. It's not necessarily like a party game, like, beers and pretzels party game, but this is definitely a big game that you will start out game night with, potentially, while everyone's deciding what to play, or while you're waiting for other players. But you can play it in a beer and pretzel setting as well.
I think, to use different words, it is a group kind of game. I think it played decently at 4 players. I think Jason and I, talking about it, agreed that this game would really shine more at least 5 players, if not 6 players or more. I think the more players you have, the better this game would be. The 4 players was okay. But I really think it could do better with more players. Yeah,
and I think just to talk about that, why it needs more players is you're taking out, for those of you who might have skipped ahead just to the review, you're losing about half the deck of cards. And that's not necessarily a big thing, but with regards to certain actions, it does make things a little bit more difficult. The more players you have, the more chance you're going to have that someone just toss down an action. Now, the game's going to get more chaotic, and that's fine. If it gets chaotic, you're just going to have to wait a little bit in terms of sequences. You'll have to make sure that there is a player that is watching the damage that is going on, and that is also going to be managing the timer so that things don't get messed up. But in a 4-player setting, when we had basically 3 players on one side, 1 person as a Zentraedi player, there was a fair bit of time where we're like, we need cards, and we just didn't quite have the setup that we need. Now, that is supposed to happen. That is part of the game mechanic, but I do feel like during a 5-player game, the Zentraedi player is going to have more opportunities to play the event cards, because they'll be waiting a little bit. Well, they're going to be focusing more on that, and rather than being like, brace for impact attack, which is something that came up a lot during our lower player counts.
Mm-hmm. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
I wanted to add that this game is, as Julie mentioned, very easy to learn. I played as a Zentraedi player, and it was a lot of fun. What I do like about the competitive nature of it is that even though it's, very much head-to-head, it plays really fast. There's never going to be a real opportunity for anyone to get mad at each other with the game. There's definitely a fairly high luck element with regards to the spinner and the cards as they're going to come out of the deck. And I do like the fact that it is as accessible as it was. I mean, your mom took over and decided to play the Zentraedi player, and she didn't have a great first game of it, but she played it perfectly after that. And she is someone that loves games, but this was sort of the first time that she was like, taking on something on her own, playing with us. Yep. It was really cool to see her actually beat us as the Zentraedi player, where she just got all of the ships out, and there's nothing else for us to do. She's like, I need to play more ships. I'm like, there's no room. I'm like, well, you killed us.
I definitely would say, I think, at some point, maybe in a year when this pandemic is over and we can meet up with people again, it'd be interesting to play it with more players and maybe come back with a revisit of this and let you know how it plays with a higher player count.
No, I think this is definitely one that we're going to revisit, because I don't think we're doing it justice. I think our review is going to give you great ideas to what the game is all about. And for those of you that want the game, you're only going to have a few players. It is playable. It's not going to be as fun as it will be with a lot of players. We actually really enjoy real-time games. It's something that we both weren't quite sure of, but I can see this game playing a lot like 5 Minute Dungeon. or a 5-minute marvel. The difference is that instead of having, just the deck controlling something, you've got a player that's taking actions against you. So you could almost call this 10-minute dungeon. Not really, but
No.
I also want to talk about the theming. This definitely feels like a Robotech game. You're constantly under attack from the Zentraedi, so it really captures the feel of the Macross saga. Now, the theming isn't like omnipresent. You could probably retheme this as almost anything and have a similar feel, but the way the mechanics work, the art, and what's used is very much a Robotech game. I don't love the board, though. The board iconography could be a little spruced up, a little prettier. We've got the spinner. It's fairly generic. I get why it keeps things simple and clear, but I would have liked maybe a little bit more from it. I don't know. We've got the attack on SCF1 game. We've got that big SCF1, so I'm kind of like, it'd be a little fun to have something.
Yeah, this doesn't, as I've said before, I'm not a Robotech fan. I don't think I've ever seen an episode. If I have, Jason probably made me watch it and I don't remember it. So
I have not made you watch it, so.
I can't really comment on that. It was just game art to me in this.
But the iconography is clear. I'll have to say that. It's clear, concise, easy to read. It's very straightforward. So that is something that they really did well with a game that's fast-paced. You're not going to have any questions as to what you're going to be doing, and the text is pretty big, so
yeah, there's a little bit of flavor text, but at least it's clear with the different colors what the different actions are. So red for attack, and
it's also bolded, so even if someone is colorblind, you're going to see armor, so you just look at that bolded word and you'll know what you're doing. And if you're colorblind, the colors should match technically, because you're really not calling out any of the colors.
Yep.
All right, I think we've said all we wanted to say about Robotech Brace for Impact. So this is definitely a very different kind of game. This is the only one we have that I would quite say that fits this role, this niche in our collection. Yep. And Julie, what do you think of it? Give it your score.
So as a 4-player real-time game, I would give this, I'm going to give it a 6. I'm going to say I think it's probably better at a higher player count. I can't speak to that though, but at a 4-player game, it's a pass. It's a 6.
No, I gotta agree with you. I'm giving this a 6 as well. I think the game accomplishes exactly what it wants to do. I do feel that it was entirely designed for somewhere in between that 5 to 9 players, and then the idea of taking it to lower player counts and higher player counts was just something that was added a little later on. And we're giving our score, but you know what we didn't talk about really?
I was going to say
we did not talk about the cooperative game. So you've got our score, and that's the other thing that I was going to say with the cooperative game mechanics, the 2-player game. It's very simple, straightforward. It's fun. I don't have a bad time of it, but the way you're playing is, there's really only one way to play it, and that's why I'm not going to call it this really cool added feature. It's just really to make the game playable, because all you're doing is saying brace for impact, doing a Zentraedi attack, and trying to destroy the entire ship deck.
You're saying brace for impact to get more cards, and
yes.
There's definitely, we tried it one way, failed, and then realized.
Yeah, we got creamed on better.
There's basically one way to play this game, and we're not gonna spoil it. You figure it out fairly quickly if you play it.
Well, I mentioned it in the review. The key thing is, go back and watch the review if you skipped that.
Not the review, the
how to play. Thank you.
So for me, it gives it the same score. I might even say the cooperative is maybe a little bit lower than that, but altogether with the cooperative and the lower player count, I give it a 6.
No, completely agree. We're on the same page. But if you're looking for a Robotech theme game or something that you can take out at a party that is maybe a little bit more, meaty and chaotic than some of the other games, I think this is the game that you're looking for. So hopefully we'll get a chance to play this at 7, 8, 10 players in the future.
So on that note, it's time to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
And take a look down below in the video description. You'll find links to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see pictures of Julie and I playing the cooperative version of Brace for Impact, there'll be pictures on those feeds, particularly when this review is released. And then popping up in front of me, you're going to see links to our previously released videos. In front of me will be our most recent release, and over there in front of Julie will be our review on how to play a Robotech attack on the SDF-1. So now what do we need to do?
Grab our drinks.
Grab our best friend.
Okay, keep playing games.
Keep playing games. Eager to see what happens when we get a real defense force to protect the SCF-1.
Brace for impact!
Brace for impact!